As winter fog clung to the fields of England, church bells echoed through Westminster. Inside a newly built abbey, a crown was placed upon the head of one man, a man who would become both king and symbol. His name was Harald Godwinson. On this day, he was crowned King of England, the last Anglo-Saxon ever to wear the English crown. And though few realized it at the time, his reign would last only 9 months. Months that would change English history forever. This is the story of a kingdom on the edge, a throne claimed in haste, and a year that would end an era. To understand why Harald's coronation mattered so deeply, we must first look at the world he inherited. England in the mid-11th century was not weak, but it was fragile. For generations, the island had endured Viking invasions, civil wars, and shifting alliances. Yet under King Edward the Confessor, England enjoyed relative peace. Edward ruled for over 20 years. But there was one fatal problem. Edward had no heir, no son, no clear successor, no plan. As Edward lay dying in early January 1066, powerful men across Europe waited, watching, calculating. Whoever claimed England next would rule one of the richest kingdoms in Europe. And several men believed that crown belonged to them. Harald Godwinson was not born a king. He was the son of Godwin, Earl of Wessex, the most powerful, noble family in England. By the time Harald reached adulthood, he was already a seasoned warrior, diplomat, and statesman. Tall, charismatic, battle-tested. He had fought the Welsh, commanded armies, and governed vast territories. To the English nobles, the Witan, the King's Advisory Council, Harald was the obvious choice. He was English, he was experienced, and most importantly, he was here. According to later accounts, Edward the Confessor named Harald as his successor on his deathbed. Whether that was truly Edward's wish or a convenient claim remains one of history's great debates. But on January 5th, Edward died, and by the next morning, England had a new king. Harald was crowned at Westminster Abbey, a church so new it was still unfinished. The ceremony took place on Epiphany, a sacred Christian feast day, symbolizing divine approval and rightful rule. Speed mattered. Harald was crowned immediately, likely to prevent rivals from acting first. The Archbishop of York performed the ceremony, possibly because the Archbishop of Canterbury was seen as politically unreliable. This detail would later be used against Harald, casting doubt on the legitimacy of his rule. But in that moment, Harald Godwinson stood as King Harald II of England. Outside the abbey, England watched. Across the sea, others were already preparing for war. Harald's coronation did not bring peace. It ignited conflict. Almost immediately, 3 men claimed the English throne. First, William of Normandy. William, Duke of Normandy, believed Edward had promised him the crown years earlier. He also claimed that Harald himself had sworn an oath supporting William's claim. William was furious, and he was powerful. Across the English Channel, he began assembling ships, soldiers, and papal support. Second, Harald Hardrada of Norway. Hardrada was a legendary Viking warrior, ruthless, experienced, and ambitious. He claimed the throne through an old Viking agreement and planned a full-scale invasion from the north. Third, Harald's own brother. Tostig Godwinson, Harald's exiled brother, harbored a deep hatred for him. Tostig allied himself with Hardrada, determined to take revenge. England was surrounded, and Harald had just placed the crown on his head. Despite the danger, Harald proved himself a capable king. He mobilized England's forces, fortified the southern coast, and waited for William's invasion. But the winds refused to cooperate. Weeks passed, supplies dwindled, and then disaster struck from an unexpected direction. In September 1066, Harald Hardrada invaded from the north. Harald Godwinson marched his army nearly 200 miles in just days, an incredible feat of endurance. On September 25th, at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, Harald crushed the Viking army. Harald Hardrada was killed. Tostig died beside him. England was saved, briefly, but Harald's army was exhausted, and William of Normandy had finally landed. Just days after Stamford Bridge, Harald raced south again. On October 14th, 1066, the two armies met near Hastings. What followed was one of the most famous battles in world history. For hours, the Anglo-Saxon shield wall held firm. But by sunset, Harald Godwinson was dead, struck down, according to legend, by an arrow to the eye. The shield wall collapsed, and with it, Anglo-Saxon England fell. William would become William the Conqueror, the first Norman king of England. Harald Godwinson reigned for only 9 months, yet his coronation on January 6, 1066, marked the end of an era. After Harald, the English language changed. The ruling class became Norman. Castles reshaped the landscape. Laws, culture, and identity were forever altered. He was the last king of England to rule as an Anglo-Saxon, not as a Norman conqueror. Some remember him as a usurper, others as a patriot defending his homeland. But one truth remains. On that cold January morning in 1066, when Harald Godwinson was crowned, England stood at the edge of history, unaware that its old world was about to disappear. History often remembers the conquerors, but sometimes it's the last defender who tells us the most about what was lost. Harald Godwinson was not just a king, he was the final chapter of Anglo-Saxon England, and his coronation was the beginning of the end. This is Legacy's Rearview,